Fine. So let's start with the next thing. Okay. 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 So next we are going to talk about file blocking. Okay. And for file blocking, basically there is another security profile, just like we had for URL filtering and others. Okay. So obviously the main basis for that is that it wants to prevent you from downloading files which are not allowed uh, allowed. Okay. So again, same thing. If a file is trying to be downloaded or uploaded, security policy rule, if it is deny, obviously, then again, just like yesterday, I talked about that any security profile doesn't work if we have security policy is deny. If you have security policy as allow, then it is going to check for file blocking profile. Okay. If the file blocking profile allows to download for that particular application, it can check for two things. Okay. One is application here. Okay. For checking application, like like we suppose, I'll give an example. Suppose I'll not allow PDF to be downloaded, okay, via HTTP, okay, but I want PDF, okay, to be allowed to be downloaded via for via emails, maybe for IMAP. Okay. So, or maybe we don't want to allow this, that. So we can decide, like, which file type for which application is allowed. Okay. Now there can be three actions: alert, continue, block. Continue will give you a response page if you are accessing that thing using HTTP or HTTPS, means you should be doing it through a web browser. Okay. If you're doing, suppose you're talking about uh, IMAP PDF download, there's no way that we can give a person a response page in which they click continue. Okay. So let's see it rather than just talking about it. Okay. These are better to see. So if you go to the objects, if you go to file blocking, you have two: basic, strict. Okay. Now, if you look at them, and they have already blocked most of the high risk things. Okay, so you can clone and make based on that. Like, you see, in any corporate environment, okay, you would not want people to be allowed to download or upload torrent files. Okay. uh, Similarly, uh, jar files, because these are Java based files. Why the user wants to download Java based files, or DL files or exe files. So you see, by default in this basic file blocking profile, these file types are blocked. Okay, for both the direction. Okay, direction both means upload and download both. Okay. Now, Uh, Another thing you see here is you have for encrypted RAR and encrypted zip. If somebody is trying to download a RAR file which is password protected and encrypted, or a zip file in a similar way, they'll be given a response page giving a warning, are you sure you want to continue? And if they still press that continue button, the file is going to get downloaded to them and their PC or whatever. Okay. So similarly, if you see strict file blocking even blocks some other file types. Okay. So let's basically, copy or clone. Sometimes I like I'll say copy. Whenever I say copy this, I mean cloning it. Okay. Actually, in some UIs I have used, they don't call this cloning. They call it copying. So that's why sometimes. Okay. Now my file blocking profile. Excuse me. And see here you can specify like, okay, I want to block these regarding what application, and all the app IDs that were available there in the security policy, you can have them here as well. Okay. Now, if you see, PDF is not there. Okay. So you can add that in the existing ones in the list, like by clicking here and clicking add. Or what you can do is you can add a new, rule in the file blocking profile. Okay, fine. So for example, let's say I want file type. There are many file types it supports. Okay, common, all of them fine. So let's try with PDF. Okay, so done. Now direction we have given both upload and download. Okay, and action, suppose we'll say block. If you keep it alert, it will just generate a log. Okay. Now, if you look at this file types for anything, okay, for any other file type, you are at least generating an alert log. Okay. So just like we applied it in, okay, we had to block it. Okay. Forgot to do that. So yeah, this is a name. Okay, just naming it block PDF doesn't block it. I don't think so. I haven't read it anything like that because let's see. Okay, let's see. I've not found it in any documentation that the order of things in the file blocking profile method. Let's see if it allows us to download the PDF, then we'll know it. Okay. I don't like to create a new one. Mostly I'll just like block all of them here rather than making these separate unnecessary entities. Let's check it out. Okay. So again, after creating a security policy, we go ahead and apply the file blocking profile. Okay, so let's commit. Okay, so let's go to the end host Windows and I'll just search for a sample PDF file. Now, see, like here, if I click on this, okay, so it blocked it. This means order doesn't matter. Okay, okay. Now, see, sometimes if you suppose go here, okay, w3.org, okay. Here you saw that it allowed to download this PDF file, right? You can see. The reason for that is here currently this particular why is it here? Okay. Or something. Okay, fine. So my point was like when I try to download it using this, is this getting hanged? Okay, see, now it's working fine. This transfer was blocked, whereas this transfer is allowed. Okay, why is it so? If you look closely here, what we have is we have HTTPS. Okay. Now, if somebody is using HTTPS, basically the communication is encrypted end to end between this device that is trying to open the file and that server, right? So basically, in this scenario, Palo Alto was not able to look at what are the contents of the communication, and that's why you see this download of file happening. Okay, fine. Now, if you want Palo Alto to be able to block these kind of things as well, you will have to enable then decryption. Okay, SSL decryption. Once we enable SSL decryption, we'll come back and test this thing again. Okay, because this website it used HTTP and this website it used HTTPS. Okay, that's the reason HTTP was it could pass and it could see that it's a PDF file being downloaded, block it, whereas here it couldn't pass. Okay. Also, this thing does not require a license, so you can check it out even on unlicensed file. Okay. Similarly, if I go to some other, suppose fileexamples.com, and I try to download the sample PDF file, you see the website here is HTTPS. So again, if I click download sample file, I'm able to download the file. Okay. Fine. Now, suppose let's say let's let's save this file. Give me a minute. Okay, so as soon as I unmute, she starts crying. I don't know what and why. So please bear with me. Okay, so we have this PDF file. Okay, here. Okay. Okay. So see, let's try to upload this PDF file. Okay, and again, we will have to do it on a website which doesn't use HTTPS. Like if you see this website, Tiny Upload, okay, it's not using HTTPS because on HTTPS based websites, if I just search for any of the files, okay, like here on this HTTPS, it will work fine, okay, but here on HTTP based website, it won't. So let's go to this Go file, okay, and if I click upload files, okay, and click here, go to downloads, give the sample file, okay, let's say upload, okay, it uploaded successfully, right? Fine. So this was fine because HTTPS was used, but if you suppose I tried to upload on this tinyupload.com, which is HTTP based, then if I select the file, if I click on upload, as soon as it starts uploading, its transfer is blocked. So it's working in both the directions. Okay. Fine. Now regarding HTTPS issues, we'll look at that again after we, after we enable SSL decryption. Okay. Fine. Now another thing, let me show you. Okay. Sometimes people will be like, okay, you have blocked PDF, but what if I zip the file? Okay, let's say I compress this file in a zip file. Okay, okay. Now you can see that this is a zip file, right? So if I try to upload that, okay, it doesn't work again. Why? Palo Alto can parse through, archived files, okay, and even it can look at, one file type within another file type, okay. So if you try to do some form of layering and try to upload the file, it won't work. In fact, if you try to do the layering, like if I put a zip file in a zip file, okay. Now if you look at sample2 sample, then there's this PDF, right? So if I try to upload this also doesn't work, okay. Now in fact, here if you look at it, okay, uh, if I suppose zip it again, okay, and try to upload, it's still blocking it, okay. So okay, now I have sample 4, sample 3, sample 2, sample, and then this file, okay. Okay, so it can pass through these multiple layers and figure out which file type it really is, okay. Okay, now sometimes what you can do is you can have a maybe a zip file in a rar file, and then have another. It can pass up to 4 layers of encoding, okay.
Sudhanshu, it will identify through the extension, right?
No,
The content of the file, right?
I discussed this, that it's stream based, okay.
Okay.
Okay, and you can have it blocked by type of file, but it does not look into extension, okay. Look, it looks into file to determine the type, not extension based. What I mean by that is, see, what happens is, yeah, it is going to figure it out, okay. Like, let me, I haven't tried this renaming it. Mhm. Sorry, hide extension for, okay. So you can see that, it's PDF, okay. Suppose I rename it to PNG, okay. Let's try uploading it now. Okay, I know really it is PDF, but we have renamed it to PNG. Okay, so see, it still blocked it because it's not looking at this extension part. It's really looking at the file and figuring out, okay, this is a PDF. Okay, so you cannot fool it like this. Got the point? Because a lot of times people used to do this, and for extension type, blocking, you can upload it as .png, and then once you download it, you can rename it back and it will work fine. So we don't want to allow that. Okay, fine. And also for each of them, there will be log generated. Okay, now okay, let's come back to this. Before this, I want to discuss something. Okay, yeah. Fine. Okay, let's look at continue as well. Yeah, like if I go to this file blocking profile, and if I for PDF I say continue. Okay, continue will give me a response page. Okay, let's commit the configuration. Okay, so suppose I try to upload, okay, or download a sample PDF. Okay. Then when you click it, it gives you a response page. It says, this file download is, and again you can customize this response page, like by going to device, response pages. Okay, you can customize this response page here. So this is the response page that we are talking about. Okay, like maybe with company logo and stuff. Okay. So what it is telling you here is that access to this file has been blocked. If you click continue, it will allow you to download. Okay, it allowed you to open it, but now you cannot say I accidentally downloaded the file. Okay, a lot of times user just say like I don't want to go to this website, I don't want to download this, that it just happened accidentally. I clicked on a link, it opened something. So why did you press continue? Okay, so continue is like, okay, another layer of clarifying that. Are you sure or not? Okay, so continue sends a browser response page which requires user permission to complete file transfer. Okay, but this will be only functional for web browsing. You cannot make it functional for IMAP, email, or anything other than web browsing. Okay. Okay, so we went here to configure it. Okay, this is the default file blocking security profile. If you want to make a modification or create from scratch, you can define the things. Okay, you can make rules in the file blocking profile. So, okay, we discussed this. Fine. Next,
Sudhanshu, I have
what
one
is,
doubt.
yeah.
If user click continue, okay, to download
Mhm.
the file, block file, then it will always allow for this user to download the PDF file, or
No, each time this guy requests a file, he'll be pointed to a continue page. It will not be uh, like I'll give you an example. Like suppose if I go back, okay, and try to download again, then it is going to give me a response, a continue page again. So each time I try to
okay,
download this,
okay, each time it will
it's
ask.
not like once.
Okay.
Okay. Now there is an option to block multi-level encoded file. What do you mean by multi-level encoded file? Suppose in your organization, I have already shown you now, but like suppose in your organization you have blocked XML. Okay. Now, if you put the XML in a Word file, suppose you copy the XML in a .doc file. Now you might say, okay, this is a Word file, it should allow. It will not allow because it can parse and see through this. Okay. Now you might say, okay, let me zip it up. Let me take this doc file, zip it up. It can still parse and look at it. Okay. And if you even put, maybe suppose you're trying to download or upload this using HTTP, now this is also considered a layer. Okay. So suppose you are trying to download a file which is a zip file using HTTP. This is like 1 layer, 2 layer, 3 layer, 4 layers. Up to 4 layers of encoding Palo Alto can look at. Okay. Beyond 4 layers, what it is going to do is it can block these multi-level encoded files. Like you see here in the file blocking profile option. Here the file type is multi-level encoding. Multi-level encoding file type means what? Multi-level encoding file type means that file which is beyond 4 levels. Okay. Up to 4 levels it can decode. Okay. But if something is beyond 4 levels, you don't want them to be allowed to download. And also see, if somebody is trying to have this, uh, multiple levels of encoding for file beyond 4, they are not trying to do something general, right? So you can basically, most of the times, it's highly recommended that you at least block multi-level encoded files. Okay, if you don't do that, people might bypass your firewall by having enough number of inputs. Okay, fine. Countering response page, we saw that. Clear? Now, sometimes these security profiles can get a bit lot in terms of how am I supposed to apply all these profiles and all this. Okay, because the more rules you have or the more security policies you have, it can become difficult to mention this this profiles in multiple rules. Okay, so what you can do is, instead of using the profiles option, you can use the group option. Okay, what happens is uh, it's basically just easing your configuration. Okay, it's nothing new. Okay, if you select this, you just have to select a group profile here rather than selecting individual profiles. Okay, which you can create. Okay, like if you look at the objects option here, just below the security profiles, there is an option of security profile group. Okay, and there's no security profile group by default. Okay, like the name says, security profile group is basically a list of security profiles. So if I click on add here, you can mention all of them at once. Okay, okay, whatever we had. Okay, all of them. We haven't touched this. We'll look at that later. So I'll click OK. So once you have the security profile group, you can go to policies, and instead of applying these profiles individually here, you could just go to the actions tab, say group, and I want to do this group. Okay. It becomes a little bit easier compared to individually assigning the profile. Okay. Now notice the difference. Previously we had 3 profiles here. Now there's just like a folder with the field on it. Okay. Okay. Working wise, it won't change. Okay. It's same. So a security profile group is a set of security profiles that are treated as a unit in order to simplify the task of adding these profiles. So you create a security profile group and instead of having it like this, lots of profiles, you have one group applied to the rules. Okay. Okay. We have already seen how to apply the security profiles to security rules. This is just a screenshot in order to have it for your notes. Or we can have a group, and this is how we apply it for a group. Now there's an option of telemetry and threat intelligence. Okay, like I told you that Palo Alto has taken a community approach towards network security, and if you select this option, okay, if you enable this telemetry and threat intelligence, what it is going to do is firewall will periodically collect some data and send that to Palo Alto's cloud, in which they'll basically get to know more about what kind of threats people are facing. Okay, if you share this, the benefit would be like you also get the intelligence, threat intelligence from the cloud. If you don't share it, you don't get information from the cloud. There's no way that I'll not be sharing my threat intelligence and still getting information from Palo Alto Central Intelligence Cloud. Okay, so this makes it a community-driven approach. Like all of the companies trying to help each other out in sharing the threat intelligence. Okay, so you can see the sample of the data that is going to be shared. Okay, and it's an opt-in feature. Nothing is selected by default. Okay, if you want to use this option, okay, then you can go at a certain place. Like if you go here, device setup limit with threat intelligence, here you can choose what things you want to share. Okay, also if you click on these things, you will be able to find a sample report, because some people will want to know like what kind of thing will be shared. I don't want something sensitive to be shared, so you can look at that there. Okay, fine. So this is what a sample report looks like of telemetry. Okay, so let's look at it instead of this. So if I go to device setup, telemetry, and if I click on this gear icon, you can define, you can check the checkboxes and decide what thing you want to be allowed to share. Okay, if you click on this report sample, it generates a sample report. That this kind of data will be shared. Destination code, destination, how many bytes. Okay, so most of the times there is nothing sensitive in it. Okay, they try to remove the sensitive things, like, you know, they don't have any of these, you know, individually identifiable information in it. Okay? And also, if you look at threat prevention report again, okay, uh, they just share this thing. Okay, so there's nothing much to directly identify a customer here. Okay, same for URL. I don't think we will have much things in URL reports because we have not yet enabled that. Okay, fine. So you can see the sample reports here, just to be clear on what kind of data will be shared. Okay. Okay. Now you can see that, you know, we just downloaded this file. Okay, so if you look at the file type identification reports, you see what was the file name? It was something like this, right? So they share something which is, you know, in general, but you see that we have not included in the sample report. There's no individually identifiable information like source IP address or user or other things like this. Okay, okay, like sample2.zip was downloaded. Okay, then this was tried to be downloaded. Okay, but identified as the PDF. Somebody trying to download. Okay, so you got the point, right? So it's not actually any specific IP address information that is going in this. So generally, it makes sense to select and, you know, select all and share the threat intelligence. Okay, maybe if you're a bank or somebody, you know, still I would say, you know, you can share it. Okay, most of the times they have taken care of the privacy of the customer. Okay, although check with your information security team and the legality team, not get into trouble for sharing. Okay. Fine. Fine. Now there is denial of service protection. Okay. Uh, if you know what is denial of service attack, Anybody who would want to?
Yes, it's like
It's just like
Yeah,
that
go ahead, Kiran.
hitting with proxy server, I would say, and sending packets to make the, I mean, to utilize the bandwidth and to choke the traffic, I would say, or to steal some information to try to take the access, something like that.
Mhm.
we can by DOS attack we can jam the traffic totally. Like it will be in stuck mode.
Mhm. Yeah, see, the main job of denial of service attack is that we want to overwhelm the user. Fine. So it's something like this. Suppose I want to, overwhelm this person with. इसको उधर ले जाओ या मैं बंद ही कर देता हूँ क्लास मतलब okay, so suppose I want to utilize the resources of this device. Okay, then what you can do is you can send a lot of there's a lot of different ways in order to do denial of service attack. One of them is like send a lot of ping packets, a lot of ICMP echo requests to this. Okay, and when this guy responds, the benefit of that would be to attacker, like the CPU utilization is going to go high the more it responds. So for the genuine things or for the genuine requests to this server or whatever device it is, this guy will not have the resources of CPU, or maybe it could be for bandwidth as well. Okay. Now there could be denial of service attack where actually an attacker is trying to utilize some infrastructure and sending lot of requests from different source IP addresses to this uh, potential victim. Okay, or similarly, it's not just always ICMP or ping packet. Okay, sometimes it could be TCP. Okay, and in TCP, commonly what they do is there's a SYN flood attack. Okay, now what's the SYN flood attack? What we do is as a end user, sorry, as an attacker, is see we have this SYN act thing which we do when we want to establish communication with anybody, right? In a SYN flood attack, basically the attacker, okay, suppose this is the attacker, he'll send you SYN to establish three-way handshake. You will send a SYN ACK, but he'll never respond with the acknowledgement to complete the connection and establish it. The purpose of it is like this guy, his CPU will be utilized in establishing connections which will never complete. Okay, so that's SYN flood attack. Okay, so there's ICMP flooding, there is TCP flooding, there is UDP flooding. Okay, for denial of service attack. Okay, now so DOS protection against flooding of new session is required. Okay, we have two types of attack: single session attack and multiple session attack. Okay. In a single session attack, basically that means that same IP. Okay, once a session is established. Okay, once you have maybe three-way handshake done, or once maybe whatever is being used, attacker initiates by sending packets at a very high rate with the same source IP, same port number, same destination IP, same port number, protocol number, so that the victim starts getting fully utilized. Okay. Now, in this case, like obviously, once they bypass the firewall from some security policy rule, they'll be in the state table or session table, and then they'll send all the traffic, lot of traffic, number of packets will increase from the same machine and same source IP. Okay, now it's not necessary that you initiate this just with one machine. You can still initiate it with uh, different machines. Okay. Now the multiple session attack means you establish multiple sessions, okay, or multiple connections per second from a single host to launch a DOS attack. Okay, means instead of specifying just the same source IP for all the attacks, okay, there will be different of these information. Each of these session or three-way handshake will be different. Okay, so see how it works in response or in how it works with respect to firewall. Okay, and how does firewall prevent it and what does it do? So if you look at this, okay, this diagram is straight coming from PAN-OS admin guide, and what you have here is like, suppose this guy starts a DOS attack. Okay, now he sends UDP packets. Okay, 10,000 UDP packets per second. Now this is not normal, right? Whereas at the same time, this attacker is also sending HTTP based traffic, which is just 10 packets per second. Obviously, if you consider, this will not be a kind of attack. Okay, whereas this is something very serious. So what happens here is when the traffic reaches Palo Alto has protection, DOS protection policy for it. Okay, we'll look at what we can see in it and things. But point here is like in this policy, there are three thresholds. Okay, three levels. One is alert, another is activate, third is maximum. Okay. So suppose this guy starts sending 10,000 packets per second. Okay, obviously it has exceeded the max threshold. Okay, so once it has exceeded the max threshold, there is a timer for which this IP address will be blocked. Okay. So what happens is this IP address, it takes Palo Alto takes this IP address. If it has crossed the max threshold, what happens at alert and activate, we'll discuss later. Okay. So once you have it reached the max threshold, it's going to block it for 300 seconds. Okay. And once it blocks it for 300 seconds, all the traffic from this source IP will be blocked. Whether it is HTTP, which is not actually attacked because it's just 10 packets per second, or whether it is UDP because this IP is now blocked. Okay. Or technically we say that this IP address will be quarantined. Okay. There was a time when I had to explain people what this word meant. Now everybody knows it after Corona. Yeah. See, actually, that is the reason why the ISP also sometimes monitor these things using firewall. They don't want their infrastructure to be blacklisted like this. And this happens with even hosting providers. Okay, even all these website hosting providers and these people like GoDaddy, HostGator, and stuff. They won't allow you to do things like this. Okay, the reason for that is because if they allow you to do something like this, they'll be blocked from certain people, and then somebody, maybe if they try to use their services, might get problems like this. So lot of this must be some small time ISP, some local ISP.
Sudhanshu, I have one question.
Because these people, they don't worry much about security. They don't put, sometimes I've seen these local ISPs without running any using any firewall, they just run that. Yeah, what's
Yeah,
your question?
it will be same for DDoS as well.
See, whether it's DDoS or DOS, we'll talk about that. Okay, it depends on, I'll tell you this. If the attack is too sophisticated, then Palo Alto is not the device that is going to defend you. Okay, frankly speaking, there are dedicated devices and there are dedicated cloud providers as well to protect you against DOS attacks. Okay, uh, it can protect you with basic things. Think of it as like this. Okay, like you know, you might have seen it in lockdown. Lot of migrant labor gathered at borders of Delhi that allow us to go out, right? If you have a limited number of police people, okay, you, and there is too much of public wanting to do something, you cannot, block it with limited resources, right? Are you getting my point?
Yeah.
Like, same thing is applicable here for DOS attacks. Okay, like it can prevent you with basic DOS attacks, but if there is a very sophisticated DOS attack planned and acted against with many people participating in it, then probably your Palo Alto cannot help you out with all of it. Okay. Like, I'll give you an example. Okay. Suppose if you see this alert threshold is 1000 packets per second. Okay. Now, suppose sometimes what happens is, you know, even these days there are government sponsored hacking attempts, or you know, denial of service attempts sometimes by various uh, countries. I won't name any particular. Now if you know, you have an army of attackers, okay, if you have too many people sitting and they are just uh, sending you maybe, you know, 1900 packets per second, each of that person, okay, your log will get generated, okay, but your DOS protection policy will not get activated, right? Your DOS protection will not block any traffic from those people because they have not, you know, penetrated the threshold. But collectively, since all those people, okay, who are all sending 1900 packets, suppose there is 100 such people, okay, they might overwhelm your server or resource, and then you know, you cannot say then that, you know, your Palo Alto didn't do anything. You get the point? If there are very sophisticated attacks, then, and it does not require 100 people. I'm just giving an example. It requires 100 devices to be, you know, attacking. So it's something like here, okay. Generally, it's like attacker. I'm saying like maybe one or two people trying to control multiple things and then trying to push through. Okay. Any other question?
No. Like when basically it will depend on the infrastructure, like how the company wants to defend itself.
Yeah. See, it's like this. Suppose I'll give you an example. Okay. Uh, like, you know, we at iMeditor, okay, it doesn't matter, you know, a DOS attack doesn't matter much to us, okay. We have not yet been attacked even once in our whole existence, because see, nobody does. There is two things, okay. One is like, you know, you doing it just for the sake of fun, like, you know, you might have seen like sometimes college kids trying to do something just for the sake of it, like because, you know, they have learned, or maybe they have uh, you know, watched some YouTube videos and now they are trying to experiment it, okay, sometimes not even knowing the legality or illegality. So one is that. Another is like, you know, when there are serious attacks, it's actually a rivalry. It's not like, you know, like, uh, I'll give you an example. Suppose, you know, somebody is really very serious, uh, or maybe offended by something which iMeditor did, okay. Suppose, you know, I'll give you an example. Like, suppose we make a statement which is very offending to some group of people, okay, and then those group of people think that, okay, you know, we'll take their website down or like that, then, you know, uh, you are a potential of victim for this, okay. So it depends on the organization level, okay. And it's like, again, I'll say, it's not like you just put one device and everything is secure, okay. You will have to have multiple things. Another is a single session DOS attack, okay. In a single session DOS attack, what happens is, if you look at here, suppose this guy attacked, it's going to be put in block list, okay, and it's going to be checked continuously, okay, whether it is still attacking or not, okay. So if it is still attacking, it will be put still in the block list, okay, fine. But if it still if it stops attacking, okay, then IP address is put in a non-attack category. So what happens here is, like, if you see the 10 packets per second HTTP traffic will not be considered in an attack. Okay. Now, there are two types of DOS protection profiles we have. Okay. Like, the job of both of them, whether you create a zone protection profile or whether you create a DOS policy with DOS profile, the job of both is to prevent DOS attack. But there is specific differences between them. Okay. Now, first let's look at this zone protection profile. It is basically the job of a zone protection profile is to block traffic at ingress. Means somebody, suppose, is trying to come from outside and you want to prevent them from even going to maybe DMZ or web zone or whatever zone you want to call it. Okay. Suppose somebody is coming from internet zone, and even before they go to web zone, we just want to block them incoming if they are going beyond the threshold. Okay. Then you apply zone protection profile. Okay. DOS policy or DOS protection profiles are used when you say source zone, internet, destination zone, web, I want to limit the number of packets. Are you getting my point? Like, when you create this DOS policy, okay, you will have to mention source zone, you will have to mention destination zone. Okay. So to block traffic before egress, egress is going out. Okay. Ingress means coming in to the firewall. Okay. So there are these two things. Okay. There is DOS policy and DOS profiles, which are used to block traffic before the egress. Okay. So if you want to protect, and you have a requirement, like if the traffic comes from this source zone going to this destination zone, you need to create a DOS policy for that. If you just want to limit something at ingress, you don't care about where it is going, then you go for zone protection profile. Clear the difference between the two? It will be further clear once we see the configuration. Okay. Zone protection profile protects ingress zone. DOS policy and DOS profile protects destination zone, or you can even specify individual IP address or host. Okay. Now, let me show you first. Okay. These options before we see. If you go to policies, if you go to DOS protection, okay, I'll add here. This is where you can specify source zone, source address, even you can specify a user, destination zone, destination address, and then you can specify some profiles, aggregate, classified. We'll look at that later. Okay, these profiles actually specify whether you want to what are the threshold levels for different things. Okay, we'll specify this later. Okay, So you get the point, like we have source, destination. So these are the match criteria, and then you protect. Compared to this, okay, if you go to network, okay, if you go to the zone, okay, I'll just show you. Here you see there is this zone protection profile, okay. Fine. And this option can also be configured directly from here. You can configure it here and then apply it to a zone, okay. So if you click on zone protection profile, see, do you specify any source zone, destination zone? No, you just specify the threshold levels and some other stuff and done, right? Do you get my point? And once you have specified the zone protection profile, you go to a particular zone and apply it. Fine. Guys, let's talk about this tomorrow. Okay. Actually, my daughter, she is not feeling well, and I'll have to attend to her.
Okay, not an issue.
Okay.
Okay, Sudarshan. Thank you.
You're welcome.